Lord Kalvan of Otherwhen by H. Beam Piper. Until about 3 years ago, I was completely unaware of H. Beam Piper and his entertaining tales of parallel realities. I was browsing at the local half-price books in Bedford, Texas, and stumbled across these two copies of Analog. I was very familiar with Analog, but never knew it had once been published in a full-size magazine format. I liked this cover art and the title Gunpowder God. Naturally, I snatched up these two magazines, and though I still haven't read every story they contain, I'm very glad to have them as part of my collection. I'm sure all of us have blind spots in our knowledge of science fiction. I'm actually grateful for my blind spots because they allow for these delightful discoveries every once in a while. How I went all these years without knowing about Piper, I couldn't say. About 10 years ago, I made another serendipitous discovery when I ran across a book of stories by Gene Wolfe. What a strange and wonderful writer Wolfe was. The idea of parallel realities has always appealed to me. I had no idea that there was an author who sort of specialized in parallel reality tales. Also, the idea of a man lost in a different reality and making use of his knowledge of gunpowder production to rise to the top of that alien society was especially appealing to me. When I was 10 and my younger brother was 7, our paternal grandfather taught us how to make gunpowder. Dad was away in Vietnam, and Granddad was just trying to be a positive influence and spend time with us. He knew what boys were interested in. We never did figure out the perfect mixture of sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal, but we had fun trying out different recipes. Imagine my amazement when I found the proper mix laid out in a science fiction story by H. Beam Piper all these years later. In the universe Piper has created, there are numerous parallel worlds living side by side, but existing at different frequencies. Naturally, at least one of these worlds is populated by advanced capitalists who exploit their neighboring worlds in much the same manner that the USA, Europe, and China exploit underdeveloped nations. Kalvan Morrison, a law enforcement officer circa 1964 on our timeline, is accidentally caught up in the effects of a transdimensional transport vehicle and is dropped in a world where Aryans migrated east rather than west, crossed the Bering Land Bridge, and populated North America. In this alternate world, Pennsylvania is inhabited by competing communities, much like the feudal kingdoms of medieval Europe. Kalvan is good at thinking on his feet, and he quickly allies himself with the first people he encounters, and soon proves himself a brave warrior and valuable asset to the community of Hostigos. I don't want to reveal too much of the story. I enjoyed reading Lord Kalvan's exploits, and I assume others will like the story as much as I did. I don't want to wreck anyone's experience of this wonderful adventure tale. Anyone who knows about H. Beam Piper probably has learned that he took his own life in November of 1964, the year before this novel was published. Piper was a hardcore libertarian, a very independent sort of person. His agent had died without informing him that some of his novels had been sold. When the money ran out, Piper concluded that his career was over. He cashed in his chips rather than asking for financial help. Complicating the circumstances was a late-in-life marriage to Betty Hearst in 1955, when Piper was 51 years old. They separated within 2 years of the wedding. Piper was largely self-educated. He began working for the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1922 when he was 18 years old. He was 41 when he published his first story. That was in 1946. The story was called Time and Time Again. It was purchased by John W. Campbell and published in the April 1947 issue of Astounding Science Fiction. Shortly after I discovered H. Beam Piper in that old copy of Analog, I found a small stack of his books for sale at Lucky Dog Books in Oak Cliff. This is the first one that I've read. Some are collections of his short stories. I know I have many hours of entertaining reading ahead of me. Piper has an unadorned, pragmatic literary style. His prose reminds me a bit of Clifford Simick's work. He was clearly a student of the history of warfare, and he makes good use of many historical references in this book. This amusing and stylish cover art was created by Michael Whalen, whose distinctive style can be recognized on many paperback book covers of the 70s and 80s. This edition of the novel was published in 1984. Lord Kalvan of Otherwhen by H. Beam Piper. I couldn't find anything about this book I didn't like. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I did. If you like the book reviews on this channel, let me know by hitting the like button, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and happy reading.